So we're going to be getting started if people can get settled in. So welcome. Really appreciate your coming this afternoon to another information session regarding HR design. My name is Harry Webney-Behrman. I'm an employee on campus. I work in the Office of Human Resource Development as a training officer. I also am involved with this project as the lead of what we call the collaboration team, whose role is to make sure that as we go along with the development of this new HR system, that we are fully engaging all campus community, and we're doing so in timely and meaningful ways so that everybody's input is considered. We float ideas past people as they're getting developed. We keep you informed as things change, and that as we move forward to implementation, that we're able to do so in the best possible way. In a minute, I'm going to turn this over to Bob Lavigna, the director of the Office of Human Resources and the lead on this project, but wanted to just make sure as you're coming in that you're aware of a couple of things. First of all, that the slides that will be shown up here are also reflected in a handout, so everybody should have gotten a handout coming into the table. There are also white index cards that are available for you to be able to write down questions. We will collect those questions and identify different themes from those questions so that we're able to make sure that the things that are really important to people are getting asked and answered. In addition, we'll have a couple of microphones to go around the room and be able to get questions directly from the floor. And we'll do this until about 3:10, 3:15, and make sure that we're able to fully answer people's questions to the degree that we're able at this point. When we originally had intended to have information sessions now, it was before implementation on July 1st. But as I think a lot of you know, implementation didn't happen on July 1st. And it has been delayed for 2 years. But what we don't necessarily have clear is that this doesn't mean that the project stops. The project continues on. There are a number of things that were very important to all of us that we're able to move forward to because they're important to our campus and important to all of us as employees. So Bob will be outlining for you what can be pursued, what will happen now, what will happen over the next 2 years, what we cannot and has to be delayed. But do not want you to leave with the impression that everything stops because implementation is delayed until July 2015. Much goes on. So with that, I want to welcome Bob Lavigna, the Director of Office of Human Resources.
Thanks, Harry. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's try that again. That was pretty good, but not great. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks for coming out on this very hot day. I spent many years living in Washington, D.C., and this is Washington, D.C. quality heat today. Usually it's not, but today it is. I appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on where we are in the HR design project. And as Harry said, we are full speed ahead. So the key takeaway, one of the key takeaways is we are still committed to and working on implementing our new HR system. As Harry said, though, there has been a delay, and I'll talk about what has happened over the last couple of months. It's been an interesting couple of months. So certain aspects of the HR design strategic plan have been delayed. But other aspects of the HR design strategic plan we can move forward on over the next couple of years. So that is, as I said, a key takeaway that we've emphasized throughout these forums. So we'll talk about basically 5 things. Recent history, get you up to date on what's happened over the past couple of months since we had the last series of forums. Talk about how we're approaching the project given the unexpected delay that occurred last month. Talk in very broad terms about what the timeline looks like over the next couple of years and beyond for the HR design strategy. And also, since this is really not part of HR design, but it's so closely related, and since the compensation plan was just approved a couple of weeks ago, we're going to go over what that compensation plan has in it for the next 2 fiscal years, this fiscal year and fiscal year 15, to make sure that everybody knows what is going to happen, and then we'll have questions and answers. As Harry suggested, we'll have questions from the floor and you have the cards that you can write your questions down. So, recent history. As you know, many of you, how many of you have come to previous forums? I'm sure a lot of you. Okay, well, thank you for coming back. As you know, recall, in the spring of 2013, we were working very hard to implement those components of the new plan that we were, at that time, required to implement on July 1st, 2013. Changes to compensation, talk a little bit about some of those things, recruiting and hiring, changing the title of classified staff to university staff, creating new systems for classified staff. So we were full speed ahead. We were developing and about to launch training. We were doing training. We originally called it just-in-time training, and then as we got closer to July 1st, we started to call it just-in-the-nick-of-time training. But we were confident that we were going to get everything implemented on July 1st that we needed to have implemented. Then, as you probably recall, on April 19th, we read about it in the newspapers, heard it on the TV news. It was revealed that UW System, all 26 campuses, and UW System administration had a reserve fund of about $650 million. And of course, that was immediately characterized as a surplus, even though much of that money was already committed and accounted for. But the problem was that over the last couple of years, the last 2 years, System had raised tuition 5.5% each year, in part based on the argument that we needed the additional money. So legislators and the media and the public said, well, $650 million, 5.5% tuition increase, what doesn't match here? So it created a huge controversy. 4 days later, on April 23rd, was scheduled a committee hearing by the Joint Committee on Employment Relations. We had one more hurdle to go through before implementation on July 1st, and that was a hearing by the Joint Committee on Employment Relations, and what we hoped would be its approval of the HR design plan for UW-Madison, as well as the new university personnel system for the other campuses. So we were going to go in front of the committee and present both plans, and we hoped to get the committee's approval. We had met individually each of the committee members prior to April 23rd, got very little pushback, a couple of clarifying questions. We were feeling pretty good that we would go into this hearing and emerge with an approved plan. On April 19th, when all of this hit the news, we weren't sure if there was even going to be a hearing on April 23rd. As it turned out, there was a hearing. The posted agenda was to review UW-Madison HR Design and UW System UPS. That didn't happen. The entire hearing was focused on the reserve fund. UW System President Riley answered a couple of hours' worth of questions about the reserve fund. There was no discussion of HR design. So coming out of that hearing, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We were hoping that Joker would schedule another hearing in time for us to implement on July 1st, so we moved ahead with the assumption, under the assumption, that we would implement on July 1st. Then, on May 24th, about a month later, the Joint Finance Committee, which developed the biennial budget, voted to cut funding for UW System by tens of millions of dollars and said, oh, by the way, since we can't really trust you, we're going to delay implementation of HR design and UPS for 2 years. So someone described that as they gave us a 2-year timeout. So Joint Finance Committee, as part of the budget that was presented to the governor, included a 2-year delay to July 1st of 2015 for those components of the HR system that need legislative and statutory approval. President Riley and Chancellor Ward both sent separate letters to the governor asking him to veto the delay. He had the authority to do that, to cross out the delay to July 1st, 2015. He decided not to do that, and on June 30th, the governor signed the budget with the HR design delay to July 1st, 2015. Now, that was characterized by some as a delay in the entire HR design implementation. We tried very carefully to communicate to the campus and others that while it did delay certain aspects of HR design, it did not delay the entire HR design strategic plan. And that's, again, what I'm here to talk to you about. So what we've been doing over the last couple of months is reviewing the strategic plan, which is still on the website, hrdesign.wisc.edu, and going through the priority items that are in the plan and putting them into these three buckets. So what we believe we can still implement moving forward between now and July 1st, 2015. There's one item that we can, I'll describe it, that we can partially implement between now and then. And then there is a bucket of items that we need legislative approval for that we cannot implement until July 1st, 2015. And I'm going to go through those three buckets. So the things that we can implement: classified staff governance, and I'll explain what the except for OSER regulated issue means. Right now, our faculty and academic staff have formal governance rights. That is, they have the authority through their elected representatives to participate in discussions about issues that are important to their groups. Personnel issues, but other issues as well. Classified staff do not have that formal governance right. We have informally engaged with classified staff through labor organizations, through classified non-represented staff council, but at the moment, classified staff don't have formal governance rights. We will proceed to move forward on providing classified staff with formal governance rights, formal like faculty and academic staff, probably a little different in terms of their authority, but to give classified staff formal rights. We have formed a classified staff advisory committee, includes 9 members, 3 nominated by our labor groups, 3 by the Classified Non-Represented Council, and 3 by the Chancellor. Those 9 folks have been meeting over the past couple of months to develop and put in place a process to create a classified staff governance. And I know we have a couple of members of the committee here. Yes? If they would stand up. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Terry has been to every single one, including the 2 midnight sessions. So thank you for that, Terry. These folks will be available after the meeting to talk to you. We also have a list of all of the members and their contact information. The Classified Staff Advisory Council will be reaching out to all of the classified staff to get input on what this classified structure will look like. Right now, they're focusing on an election process to elect the executive committee. The executive committee will then turn around and create a process to elect all of the representatives. Now, how are we going to do this? In December, the Board of Regents passed a resolution endorsing governance rights across the system for university staff. And as you recall, we were going to change the name from classified to university staff on July 1st because we were going to be pulled out of the classified system. Well, we can't do that. So classified staff will remain classified staff. The problem is the Board of Regents resolution specifically refers to university staff. So we have to go back to the Board of Regents and we hope get the regents to revise the resolution to make it pertain to classified staff. Now, system has to do that. We can't do that unilaterally here at UW-Madison. So we're hoping that system will do that, and we're talking to them about it. Even if the board doesn't change the resolution, we will move ahead on this campus through formal policy to give classified staff governance rights. So this is an important thing, and it's up there as the first item for a reason. Now, the exception is for OSER-regulated issues. OSER is the Office of State Employment Relations. It's the state agency that governs classified personnel. Because we're still within the classified system, we have to go along with the OSER regulations. So the governance for classified staff won't have authority over the stuff that's regulated by OSER. Not now. It will have in 2 years when we hope we get the full authority to create our own personnel system on July 1st, 2015. But there's still a lot that classified governance structure can address. New applicant tracking system, a system that will integrate our classified and unclassified hiring, and we hope also provide a more user-friendly experience for job applicants. Enhanced performance management approach. as the 11 work teams did their work that resulted in the HR Design Strategic Plan, and some of you participated in those work teams, the performance management team found that there are a lot of people on this campus who don't get feedback from their supervisor. We had one person who raised her hand and said, I haven't gotten a performance evaluation in 10 years. Well, we think that every person on this campus, every employee, deserves to get performance feedback from their manager or supervisor, and our goal is to put in place a structure that assures that everyone gets that kind of feedback. And we don't need legislative approval to do that. That's just a good practice. More learning and development training, including supervisory courses. If we expect our supervisors to do their job like I just described, we have to make sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities and have the tools and knowledge to do that job. So we'll be rolling out more training programs. Workforce diversity plan, that was one of the key areas of recommendations in the strategic plan, to create a campus-wide diversity plan that doesn't just focus on students, which has typically been the focus, but includes the workforce, our employees. We're doing that in cooperation with the Ad Hoc Diversity Committee, which is a committee that's been formed by the Chancellor. I'm a member of that committee, and that committee's charge is to create a unified and comprehensive strategic diversity plan, and we'll work with them, continue to work with them. Campus-wide, whoops, can I go back? There we go. Campus-wide diversity, engagement, and inclusion survey. We've done this in the 13 units that report to Darryl Bazell, the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. Many of you are in those units. Last year, we conducted a survey of those 4,500 employees to find out directly from them how they feel about their jobs, their supervisors, their colleagues, their work units, the mission of the campus, so that we get direct feedback from them about how they're feeling about these things, where we need to focus on to improve workplace conditions, climate, and employee engagement. We want to do that across the campus, not just in the 13 support units. So that is part of the plan that we intend to focus on during this 2-year period. Continuing on. Improved employee onboarding, making sure that across the campus, everyone who joins our campus community as a new employee is welcomed, gets the kind of reception, the kind of support, resources, and knowledge and information they need to be successful as soon as possible. Workplace flexibility toolkit. The workplace flexibility work team, one of the 11 work teams, looked across the campus and realized that there actually are lots of options around workplace flexibility that some of our employees are taking advantage of. But there isn't a whole lot of understanding across the campus about what these options are, how to access them. Managers and supervisors, some don't really understand why it's important to think about these options and think about them for their employees, that they're not just employee benefits, but they're ways to improve individual and organizational performance. So we in OHR, Office of Human Resources, will take on the responsibility of educating the campus because we think that's an important part of expanding workplace flexibility. Employee competencies, identifying what we need to be good at as employees in order to help this campus continue to be one of the world's great universities. We're going to start with human resources because we think we need to focus on HR, and we also want to demonstrate to the campus that this is not something that they should do and we're going to do to them. This is something that we're going to do in HR first, and then we'll roll it out probably next to managers and supervisors so that we're all clear on what roles and responsibilities are. Streamline supplemental insurances. This is something we'll do through the payroll system, HRS. For example, we have 5 life insurance programs right now. Nobody can really figure out why we have 5. Along with a couple of my colleagues, we met with our new chancellor a couple of weeks ago to describe to her our benefits programs. And she said, why do we have 5 life insurance programs, and how do I pick the one that's best for me? And our answers were, we don't know. So we need to streamline that, and there are some other benefits areas that we need to streamline as well. Put together an HR dashboard, a set of measurements that we can share with the campus in a transparent way so that we all know the extent to which these new systems are enabling us to attract, develop, and retain talent. Accountability in the Office of Human Resources around monitoring employee diversity, not just demographic data, but also whether or not changes to things like compensation, job titling, recruiting, and hiring are enabling us to be diverse and are also treating all of our employees fairly. And an organizational assessment within the Office of Human Resources. Do we have the right organization? Do we have the right competencies to manage this new system in a way that it will be successful? And also how we communicate across the campus. Right now in OHR, we have a bunch of websites. So it's very complicated to get information. It's complicated for me, so I can imagine what it's like for people who know less than I do about the Office of Human Resources. So we need to fix that. So these are the things that we can do and we are moving forward on despite the delay over the next couple of years. And we truly believe that implementing these kinds of changes will make a difference for everyone on our campus. Partially implement. Improving our recruiting and applicant assessment processes. We were fully expecting on July 1st to be pulled out of the state civil service hiring system and be able to create our own system. And we felt, and continue to feel, that we can create a system that is fair, merit-based, and more user-friendly than the current system. However, we're still in the state system, but we still feel that there are ways that we can improve how we recruit and hire new employees to make the experience better for the hiring managers and supervisors and make it better for the job candidates. So within the parameters of the classified system, we are going to aggressively look at how to improve our hiring system and have already begun that process. So I showed you the things that we believe we can implement fully, showed you the one thing that we can implement partially. Now let's talk about those aspects of the plan that have to be delayed for 2 years. We can't create this university staff category. We had to come up with a new category title because we were going to be pulled out of the classified service, classified system. That's not going to happen for a couple of years, so classified employees will still be classified employees. We were going to transition exempt positions, that is salaried positions in the classified staff, to academic staff. We were going to give those employees the option to move into the academic staff. We weren't going to force anybody to move. We were going to provide counseling so that people on an individual basis understand what it means to move from classified to the academic staff. We're not going to be able to do that. That's been delayed. Classification and compensation study, including analysis of our benefits programs. We will do this study, but we're going to delay it because we don't want to do the study before we're able to implement the results. And right now we're still in the state compensation plan. We're still in the state job titling system. We're still in the state benefits program. So we will do this. We'll likely do it in cooperation with UW's system to collect data on where we need to be in the job market in terms of compensation to be competitive, to make our job classification system, which right now includes, I think it's more than 1,600 job titles, to make it a little easier to understand, and to take a look at some of our benefits programs. We will do this, but it's going to be delayed. Living wage for all staff. This is very bad. We can't do this. We had planned on July 1st, 2013, to raise the hourly wage of every one of our employees who earns less than what the City of Madison has calculated as a living wage, which is $12.19 an hour. As of July 1st, we would raise everyone who's under that. And Mark, how many people are there? 600, 700? We were going to raise their wages on July 1st to $12.19. We had gotten budget approval, all the other approvals. We were all set to do that. We cannot do that now because we are still in the state compensation system, still covered by the state compensation plan, and we do not have the authority to raise those people's wages up to $12.19 an hour. There is some relief in the compensation plan, which I'll talk about in a moment, but there's nothing we can do to, across the board, raise those 600 or 700 employees' wages to $12.19. Very frustrating, very upsetting, but there isn't anything we can do about it across the board. We were also going to introduce compensation flexibility so we could hire people, new employees in at above the minimum of the pay range where they deserve it because of their experience, background. Going to introduce additional flexibility around pay raises. We can't do that because we're still covered by the state compensation plan. More consistent benefits across different categories. We right now have 3 benefit systems. We have one for unclassified staff, separate system for classified staff, and a third system for our trades employees. It's very complicated and also creates inequities across employee categories. So our goal was to begin the process of evolving into a single benefits system. And we were going to do that with some small steps, small but not so small to those employees affected. For example, by allowing newly highly classified employees to take their vacation during their first 6 months. Right now they can't do that, even though unclassified employees can. To provide newly hired classified employees with the employer share of their health care contributions right from the start. Right now they have to wait 2 months. Unclassified employees don't have to wait 2 months, but we can't do that stuff because we're still covered by the state compensation and benefits programs. And, I think there's one more, we were going to provide pay mechanisms to provide performance-based compensation for all employees. Right now we can do that for classified staff, but we cannot do that for unclassified staff. So we're going to have to wait on that. Also, right now we have 2 catastrophic leave programs. Catastrophic leave program means if someone is out of leave and they're ill and they need additional leave in order to keep getting paid, employees can donate vacation time to the employees in need. If you're a classified employee and you want to do that for an unclassified employee or vice versa, you can't do that right now. We have 2 separate programs. We were going to create one. We'll have to wait. We were going to create new processes for layoffs, probation, grievance, and appeals for university staff because we were going to be out of the state system. We are still in the state system, so the current processes in those areas will remain the same. We were planning to modify university classified staff right of return. Right now, if a classified employee moves to another job on a transfer basis and they fail probation, they have the right to return to their original job. In many cases, units leave vacancies open for 6 months until they learn whether or not that new employee is going to return. We were going to modify that to a 1-month right of return for any reason, but we can't do that, so the 6-month right of return stays in effect. And as I mentioned earlier, we were going to completely redesign our recruiting and hiring processes. We can do part of that, but within the framework of the state classified civil service hiring process. So these are the things that we're going to be, that are delayed for 2 years. So where do we go from here? We are reviewing our project plan, modifying it, to reprioritize, given the delay, the things that we had put up front because we needed to get them in place on July 1st, 2013. Most of them have been delayed, so we are coming up with a new project plan, setting new priorities, and a new rollout schedule for the things that we will put in place over the next couple of years. We will still work on the stuff that needs to be in place on July 1st, 2015, but we're no longer under pressure to do that by July 1st of this year. Continuing to engage with all of our shared governance groups, the faculty, academic staff, classified staff. I mentioned the Classified Staff Advisory Committee. Continue to have interactions with the shared governance groups so that they can advise us as we move forward and develop policies and practices for the new HR system. Consulting with UW system, our plan was much broader in scope than UW system, so I think we're in a better position to move forward despite the delay than UW system is, but we still need to work with them to integrate the aspects of the new HR system where we have to be in alignment with the rest of the campuses. I mentioned the formal classified staff governance. I mentioned the ad hoc diversity committee, still working with those 2 groups. And we're coordinating with the new payroll system. There were some changes that would have gone into effect on July 1st, 2013, like changing classified staff to university staff, some other changes. They are now delayed, but we'll continue to work with the HRS folks on those things that we'll put in place over the next couple of years. So I want to just show you that. I don't think you have this in your handout. This is the complete list that I showed you on 2 slides of those things that we are moving forward on, despite the delay, moving forward on these over the next 2 years. And I think it's a pretty healthy list that's going to make a difference in our ability to attract, develop, and retain talent across the campus, all employee categories, and I think these changes will affect every employee on this campus, and we're committed to and working on them. So that's where we stand on HR design. Again, the takeaway is there is a delay. Are we disappointed? Yes. However, there's a lot that we will continue to do despite the delay, a lot that we will put in place over the next couple of years, and we are still looking forward to, on July 1st, 2015, to be able to put in place the full HR design strategic plan. So now I want to switch gears and talk about the compensation plan. This is the plan that has been approved by the legislature that is in effect now, that applies to this fiscal year as well as the next fiscal year. So it's a 2-year compensation plan. General provisions, 1% raise now across the board with a few minor exceptions, and another 1% raise in 2014. And this says that the unclassified was subject to Board of Regents approval. That has happened. So the classified and unclassified employee groups will both receive the 1% raise. The only exception is any employee who has a documented record of failing to meet expectations will not get the 1% raise this year. And we think there will be no more than 10 of those employees across the campus. So that is the only exception that is in, for classified staff, for example, that is the only exception that is in the compensation plan. All classified employees, and Mark, you can check me on this, all classified employees who are on our rolls as of what date will get the raise? As of June 30th. For unclassified employees,
July 1.
It's July 1. So effectively, everyone will get it unless you have a documented failure to meet expectations, unsatisfactory performance. So 1% now, 1% in 2014. Employees who are earning under $15 an hour will receive their 1% this year. On top of that, they'll get an additional 25 cents an hour as long as those 2 increases don't exceed $15 an hour. So if you get the 1% and you get the 25 cents, and that brings you up to $14.90 an hour, you'll get the $14.90. If it brings you up to $15.10, you'll be capped at $15 an hour. And again, these are provisions of the state compensation plan that apply to us. We don't have any flexibility to deviate from this. And salary ranges, minimums and maximums will also move as part of the 1% pay raise. Will not apply to trades employees. We just learned this a couple of weeks ago. We had assumed that trades employees would get these raises also, but we were informed by the Office of State Employment Relations that OSER believes that trades employees are still represented by their unions because they haven't been informed otherwise, and therefore they have to negotiate for pay raises. So we were prepared to apply the 1% as we were instructed to all employees, including our 300 trades employees, but the Office of State Employment Relations has said we cannot do that, and the trades employees must negotiate for any pay raises. And the supplemental health insurance conversion credit, which a lot of people were concerned about 2 years ago when Act 10 was passed, the additional sick leave that you can convert if you retire to pay for retiree health insurance, that is in the compensation plan. So for the next 2 years, retirees will be eligible for that as long as they have, 15 years of service? So you get your basic sick leave, and if you have more than 15 years, you can effectively double it. That conversion credit is still in effect. So those are the general provisions. Specifically, how we're going to implement. For academic staff and faculty, effective the 12-month appointments effective July 1st or August 26th. The 9-month appointments, the target is September 1st to see that in the paychecks for our 12-month employees, or October 1st for our 9-month employees. Obviously, since it's effective July 1st, there will be some retroactive payments, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to do that. So that's for academic staff and faculty. Unclassified staff are classified. The increase is effective June 30th, and we're targeting the increase to be in paychecks on July 25th, and we're pretty sure that we're going to be able to do that. There are some market adjustments for specific titles, around 30 or 40, that OSER has included in the compensation plan, several in the police department, several IT titles. Those pay ranges will be shifted upward. We don't have a list of those here, but if you go to the Office of State Employment Relations website, you can see what those titles are. Some of them this year, but I think the majority won't be until 2014. There are two, I'll put them both down, changes to discretionary merit compensation program, the DMC program. We had it in effect this past year. This is a program that's run by the Office of State Employment Relations. The change here is it used to be that non-exempt classified employees who got a DMC could only get it as a bonus. From now on, they can get it either as a bonus or as a pay raise. So that's a change to how the discretionary merit compensation program is going to be run statewide. Now, it used to be that you could get a DMC for performance, retention, or equity. This year, they've split it up, and they've created a new program called the Discretionary Equity and Retention Adjustment, or DERA. And as I've been saying, whoever came up with that was very proud that day that they came up with the DERA program. And essentially what that is what used to be in the DMC program, but now they pulled it out and made a separate program for equity and retention adjustments. And these can be bonuses or pay raises. And since these are new programs or modified programs, we need to develop and issue new policies about how we're going to administer them. But the big change here is for classified non-exempt, hourly paid employees, when they get a DMC, it's not just limited to being a bonus, it could also be a pay raise. So that's where we stand on the compensation plan for this year and next year, basically 1% this year across the board with a very few exceptions, 1% next year. And for those employees who are earning under $15 an hour, they get first the 1% and then 25 cents on top of that. And for classified employees, you'll see it in your July 25th paycheck. So that's, in broad strokes, what the compensation plan looks like. As I mentioned, we have to revise our DMC and DERA policies, so we'll roll those out as soon as we can. We're working on them already. So, questions. I have with me Mark Walters, who's the Director of Classified Personnel, and Steve Lund, who is Director of Academic Staff Personnel, and they will help me answer questions. Right. And Harry, you're going to facilitate that.
Thank you, Bob. So, as I mentioned at the start, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to submit on a white card, Kirsten and Jay are coming around and collecting those. And if you are interested in posing a question from the floor, then David and Lisa will be going around with microphones to be able to do that. I already have a few questions, so I'll be able to get those going. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. Maybe this works now. Is it on? Yes. Is it on? Okay, good. One thing I wanted to mention before taking questions is that on the back table, and this is also, I think, on the HR Design website, this group has been formed now that I think Bob alluded to, that is a University Staff Advisory Committee, and that group is the group that is determining how governance responsibilities will be formed among classified staff, and the members of that committee all have their contact information on the sheet. So if you have specific follow-up questions that you'd like to pursue with any of them, we strongly encourage you to take that sheet, or if you're watching the live stream, go to the website and be able to contact them directly.
I want to add one thing that I forgot to mention, and the Classified Staff Advisory Committee meets every Tuesday, 9 a.m. in Bascom Hall. Those are open meetings, and the location is posted right outside of the Office of Human Resources office in Bascom Hall.
I know that Terry Fritter is here. Any other members of that group that are here?
I'm
we
here,
have
Linda
several.
Weinholz.
Okay.
I'd just like to make and not to correct you, but because we didn't go with the HR design, our little half papers are wrong. It's Classified Staff Advisory Committee.
It's now Classified Staff Advisory, right, because it's Classified Staff Governance. Good point. Okay. So, a couple of questions. One question relates to grievances. And the question is, why are there no clear grievance processes that are laid out, or there's a sense that there aren't clear steps for it, that says 1, 2, 3, this is how grievance is working under the current system. And related to that is a question about how folks without representation can get a fair shake in the process.
I'm going to ask Mark to handle that. We were working on a new grievance process that was to be introduced with the July 1st deadline. Of course, that has to be delayed.
Right now, there is a grievance process for non-represented employees, and that's spelled out as far as on our website. So there is a process that identifies how you file a grievance as a non-represented employee. After Act 10 and the labor contracts expired, all employees would basically revert to that non-rep grievance process, and we are following the Chapter 230 of the state statutes as far as how that grievance process would work. So there is a identified process for grievances for non-represented employees, and it's on our website in the classified policies and procedures area.
Is there a way that people can get some counsel, advice about how to use it, in case the information on the website isn't seen as clear enough?
Certainly individuals can contact our office as far as the Office of Human Resources, Classified Human Resources, and if they have questions, they also can contact their HR representatives that are within their college, school, or division. And I know there are other personnel representatives. Our labor organizations have also been involved in regard to educating people on that process.
Okay, thanks. What are the plans to ensure job security under the new HR design strategic plan?
We've made it very clear from the beginning that the HR design strategic plan would not result in any layoffs or reorganizations that would result in people losing their jobs. We also went to, I think, pretty great lengths in designing the new system that was to go into effect on July 1st to preserve employee protections, including due process and just cause. Now, since we did not implement those new provisions, our employees are covered right now by the same protections that they have traditionally and historically been covered by. So nothing has changed.
And this is a question related to academic staff under the new HR design, Steve. So several academic staff teach courses just as faculty members do, and they're wondering under the new HR design, what will their status be? Will they be treated or compensated as faculty members? What about their job security? So there are questions about academic staff who are teaching academic staff. And
Steve Lund from Academic Personnel. Lecturers, faculty associates who are instructional academic staff would continue to be instructional academic staff, not faculty. Some universities include folks like that in faculty, under the term faculty, also include scientists, but they make the distinction that they're non-tenure track faculty. The definition of faculty here is actually in the state statutes, and it's defined as professor, associate professor, assistant professor, and instructor, which a lot of people don't know. But it's all tenure related. So that won't happen for instructional academic staff. and the job security provisions would remain the same.
This is a question related to trades. New trade staff get 100 hours of vacation. Do they have any options? And do the existing trade staff also get that? So that's the way the question's framed.
Well, the trade provisions are pretty much staying the same. There was a slight adjustment in the compensation plan in regards to how vacation schedules would be calculated and the adjusted prevailing wage. I don't have that information in front of me right now. But as Bob had indicated, the adjustments that were going to occur for the trades, and let's step back a little bit, that in the original compensation plan that the governor put forward, the trades were going to get the new adjusted prevailing wage because right now it's a 2, 3, or probably 4 or 5 years old, and they were going to get adjusted to that new prevailing wage. And the Joint Committee on Employment Relations decided that the trade should get a 1% increase, just like all other employees, and that's what was put forward as far as approved by the legislature. And then subsequently, the Office of State Employment Relations determined that basically the trades were still a certified bargaining unit, so that process had to go, the increases had to occur through a collective bargaining process. So there were some slight adjustments within the comp plan in regard to the percentages and the vacation area. We will be getting more information on that soon, but generally everything is pretty much the same.
There are a couple of questions related to DERA, Bob. Or maybe Mark, is DERA both for exempt and non-exempt as a base adjustment? And does it have to get approved via OSER or does CHR approve?
Basically, the discretionary equity and retention adjustment that's been created only for salaried exempt employees. That is not available for non-exempt hourly employees. But as Bob indicated, the discretionary merit compensation adjustment, which was only for hourly employees, was only available as a lump sum payment or a bonus, now has been expanded to allow for base increases for employees in those areas. So that was a major change as far as flexibility. What was the second part of the question?
So the other one, does it apply to both exempt and non-exempt? So
approval.
Like
the second part was the approval. Who approves it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, who approves it?
The
Right.
process. The approval process would be going to the college school division would have to approve it. It would come to the Office of Human Resources for the approval, and then we indeed do have to go to the state, to the Office of State Employment Relations, to get the final approval. Now, in the compensation plan, there is an area for delegating that approval in the future to the campus, but that will be down the road.
So each individual request, employee by employee, has to go down to OSER and get its approval.
Yes, it does.
I have more questions here, but I'm willing to take them from the floor, too. Yeah. David will get you a mic. Well, we're live streaming this, so it would be helpful to have it mic'd. Thanks.
Hi, I work in FP&M, and not all employees got a performance review last year, which automatically disqualified them for getting a merit pay.
No.
No, they were still qualified even though they didn't get a performance review?
I think you had said.
Yes, you're talking about the discretionary merit compensation award, and indeed part of the requirement is that an employee would have to have a performance evaluation to be eligible for one of those awards. So if an employee did not have a performance evaluation, they would have become ineligible for that award, and that aspect is still present in the in the compensation plan as far as that requirement.
I have a follow-up. So are the supervisors who failed to do their job by failing to do the performance review not going to get the pay raise? Are they the ones not meeting their job standards?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion as far as with the college schools and divisions to make sure supervisors do complete those performance evaluations. And there are provisions in the compensation plan that indicate that if a supervisor is not completing the performance evaluations, for their employees, they are not eligible for the 1% increase, and we certainly have conveyed that on to the campus.
Thanks. Good questions. So what if you get the 1% and the 25 cents and still don't come up to $15? What will happen?
Well, you would get the 1%, you'd get the 25 cents, and if that's the rate that you would get. So if those two things get you to, let's say, $13.75 an hour, that would be your rate as far as going forward after June 30th.
Right, the $15 was just meant to demonstrate where that threshold is for
That's
getting
right.
the extra quarter.
The $15 is meant that anyone below $15 an hour. So let's say you are at $14.75, and the 1% plus the quarter would push you above that. You would only be set at $15 an hour. You would not get the full 25 cents in that situation.
Oh, we have a question from the floor.
Yeah, so the year 2014, there's an additional 1% for those that are under that $15 mark. Does that 25 cents fall into that for the 2014?
No, the 25 cents is only for the first year of the compensation plan as far as 2013. In 2014, on June 29th, the employees would get a 1% increase, but there would not be that extra 25 cents an hour in 2014.
Okay, thank you.
Can you explain the HR dashboard in more detail?
I can explain it conceptually in some detail, since we haven't developed it yet, but it will be a set of metrics, indicators, quantitative measures of our ability to attract, develop, and retain talent. So it'll probably have some recruiting data. It might have some compensation data. If we do an engagement, inclusion, and diversity survey, it will have those kinds of results. So this is something we'll be developing over the next year, and we don't have it yet, so I can't really give you too many details.
One question that we have here is, are employers' hands really tied when it comes to creating and filling vacant classified positions?
Well, positions get filled, so I guess our hands are not completely tied.
Right.
But the process, I think, is widely viewed as not being as efficient and effective as it can be. And there are some things, for example, we have to use state-created registers, lists of qualified candidates, and these are people who apply for state jobs, not necessarily jobs here at the university. And there are cases and examples where hiring managers get the same lists over and over again, even for candidates that they have interviewed and have decided not to select. I think the process for the candidate is not very user-friendly. There can be long gaps when the candidate hasn't heard what's going on. It happened with me. When I applied, I didn't hear anything for 6 months. So there are ways that we can make the process more efficient and effective, not just on the hiring side, but also on the job candidate side. Yeah, Mark.
Well, as far as on the classified hiring process, I wanted to give an example as far as our office support hiring area, where we have to use a state list, as Bob has indicated, where we have thousands of people that get on that list. We use that list, and we're not able to customize that as much as we'd like as far as for our campus to make hiring, to go forward with hiring activities. And that really hinders us in a variety of ways, one of which, if we want to get a more diverse pool of applicants, and we go out and we do some recruiting, well, we're recruiting right into that list of thousands of candidates, and it does not help us. And that's just one area where it creates problems for us. So.
And since this is being recorded, I want to be accurate. It probably wasn't 6 months. It was probably 3 or 4 months. I didn't hear anything. For the record.
It was 6 months for me. It's just...
There you go. Harry's 6 months.
So there's an opinion among some that the change in the right of return policy, going from 6 months to 30 days, isn't such a great idea. And so the questioner is asking, is there any chance it's going to be kept at 6 months in the new HR design system?
Probably not, assuming we get legislative approval, because we went through the process of having that conversation campus-wide, also had conversations with the governance groups, and some of you may recall that the initial recommendation was to eliminate the 6-month right of return entirely. And after we had a series of conversations, that was changed up to a 1-month and completely at the discretion of the employee. So if the employee, under this new system, went to a new job and two weeks into it said, whoa, this is not for me, they would have the right to go back to their previous job. So we tried to come up with a compromise between the current system and eliminating it entirely.
And you don't see that changing
No.
over the next period of time? Okay. Another question is about people falling through the cracks and getting misinformation or false information, and just wanting to know what resources there are to really help make sure they're getting accurate information.
It's a pretty general question. There are lots of ways to get information. Our website, which, as I suggested earlier, is not the most efficient way to convey information, but it still has a lot of information. As Mark suggested about the grievance process, if you want to know what the grievance process is for non-represented employees, go to our website and you can get information. There are also your own, in your unit, HR folks. There's also the OHR folks. You can reach out directly to us. There are, for example, the Classified Staff Advisory Committee. That is a group that has a tremendous amount of knowledge. Mark mentioned that there are representatives that are still available from our labor group. So there are many different ways to get information. Now, the downside of that is many different ways to get information. It's hard to make sure that the information is consistently conveyed. So we recognize that is an issue on this campus, and we try real hard in OHR when people are misinformed that we try to correct it individually for that employee, and then we reach out to our stakeholders to make sure that information is shared consistently. I mean, one of the reasons that we're doing these every 3 months is to make sure that anybody who wants to hear about what's going on with HR design and some of this other stuff hears it directly from us and has an opportunity to ask questions. You can also do that through the HR design website, and we make sure that we answer all of those questions directly.
So one question that's come up is we've been using the term trade employee, and there's lack of clarity among everyone in the audience about what a trade employee is.
Those are employees, the crafts workers, such as plumbers, electricians, steam fitters, painters, the types of positions that typically have apprenticeship programs and these types of things. As far as what people traditionally think of as crafts workers, I guess that's, that would be the...
So is there a list of those titles somewhere?
Yes, there is a list as far as our listings of titles out there. Those are individuals that I believe are on pay schedule 4.
Pay schedule 4?
Okay.
When will pay mechanisms to reward performance for all employees go into effect? Is this just for classified staff?
Well, the compensation plan applies. If we're talking just about performance-based compensation, we, by law, cannot link compensation to performance for unclassified staff, faculty and academic staff. That's one of the things that we wanted to change. We're unable to do that right now. So some of the ways that we can reward performance for classified staff are not available to us for unclassified staff, and that is by state statute.
So the opportunity to do that will be in 2 years when everything's implemented.
We hope so, but there has to be a statutory change in addition to approval of our HR design plan.
Okay, so it's more than the approval. Yep. It's also a statutory change because that's what governs it.
And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but that was in the budget, in the governor's budget, and that was one of the things that was cut out, along with the delay and the budget cuts.
Very good. Question from the floor, Terry?
Yeah. Quickly, I'd like to say that Linda Meinholz, Richard Gass, and Kate Kaminsky and myself will be at the back of the room if anybody has any questions. These are hard-working people on this committee. But I got a couple of questions on the DMC. I think it's real important. People still don't know what the guidelines were in their department, what the guidelines were coming from human resources. And so I think it's real important that people know what they have to do to attain this discretionary merit compensation. I also as we went through this when it was first brought up, that it was agreed by HR and all the groups at the table that there was at least 80% of the people on campus deserved it, at least 80. And if we only can give this once to a person once a year, then to me it may show favoritism. I would hope we could go to doing it every 6 months, and it'd be a different person. So you do it in July and then do it again in January, so more people can be involved. And maybe a little less money, but you're covering more people who deserve this compensation. Because the worst thing can happen is every year, every July it comes back and the same people are getting it. And that looks like you're playing favorites instead of actually trying to reward all the people who deserve this pay.
Well, as usual, Terry, you make good points. But the 1 year, that's per individual, right? Not everybody, they're not awarded at one time every year, right?
No,
we're having a little dialogue up here now.
Yes, the discretionary merit compensation, those can be given at any time during the year as far as employees. The limitation is that the one employee cannot receive more than 4 steps within their pay range. They actually could get more than one of those awards throughout a 12-month period. It's just the total amount for all of those awards could not be more than 4 steps within their pay schedule. So there hasn't been a sort of a standard time that these increases are provided. But there was a program that was created as far as earlier this year that was called the the Critical Compensation Fund that was utilized. That was a separate program to provide 30% of all employees an increase across employee groups. We utilized the DMC to provide that increase to our classified employees, but other mechanisms were used for our academic staff and our faculty. And so that's why some people get confused of the CCF, Critical Compensation Fund, being a limitation on the discretionary merit compensation adjustment, but it's really not.
So this is part of our continuing strategy to create as many acronyms as possible.
That's right.
CCF, DMC, DERA, and so on.
And that was our strategy, certainly with HR design, that we were going to get rid of all this acronym soup and basically have one type of adjustment tool that could be used universally. But obviously we find ourselves in our current environment for a period of time now, and so we have to use the tools that we have.
One point that I think Terry was also making that has come up before is people were very confused about how those critical compensation fund increases came about, what criteria were used, et cetera. They weren't necessarily clearly communicated out there. And I think there was a lot of discretion given to divisions and colleges about how they did that, so it varied from place to place.
I accept the point, Terry. I said you make good points, that we need to communicate as clearly as possible about these programs. On the other hand, I'm not sure we're ever going to get to the point where every unit on this campus does these kinds of things the same way. I've only been here 3 years, but that's one of the things I've learned, that it's going to be very difficult to get everybody to do everything the same way. But I do take the point that we need to communicate as clearly and broadly as possible about this stuff.
So there are more points about DMCs and DERAs. There are several questions. I'll just take a couple of them here. Does the 1% increase adjust the starting base wage for new employees who haven't yet been hired?
Yes, actually, with the adjustments, as far as the pay schedules going up by 1%, the minimums. So right now, for our hourly employees, the employees start at the minimum of the pay range. And so when that pay range is going up by 1%, the employee would get an increase as far as to that 1%. I mean, was that the question?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Essentially?
And I don't think this is necessarily stated the way it's intended. It's asking if the $15 an hour minimum applies to future new hires. There is no minimum of $15 an hour, but I think that threshold question, whether that's going to apply.
No, the $15 threshold is only applied to current employees, and it's applicable to that 25 cents an hour increase. That's the only time that would be taken into consideration.
And to be clear, the $15 is a maximum, not a minimum.
Yeah. And then how is the determination made between a bonus versus a base adjustment under the DMC or the DERA program?
That would be a decision that would be made by the individual that's making a recommendation for the award, supervisor, the division, the college. But generally, if it's a one-time type project that someone would be working on, has a start and end date, a lot of times a bonus or a lump sum payment would be provided in those circumstances. If the new function or the performance is going to be continuing on, hopefully performance would continue on, that would be a reason to provide a base building increase. And also there could be a possibility because of budget that an organization does not have the ability to fund that increase for a long period of time, so instead they provide a lump sum payment or a bonus.
And those are the kinds of things that we'll include in our policy, right?
Yes.
Question from the floor? Hey, how's it going? You guys are spending a lot of time, I think, defending a lot of the challenges that you've mentioned with some of the limitations you have with the current system. With those challenges, how do you promote the UW systems and promote recruitment and retention when how do you compete at this point? Like you mentioned the living wage in Madison. We're kind of below that threshold in a lot of cases right now. How do you obviously retain your current employees, kind of give them hope for the future, and how do you recruit people in at this point for the next 2 years?
Yeah. Well, I can say that the delay hasn't made that any easier. But I still believe in the mission of this place, and I think most people come to work here, many people come to work here, I don't have any data to support this, because they believe in the mission of this place, of this university. It's one of the world's great universities, and I know I'm proud to work here. And I think people who we hire and people who engage with us in achieving the mission and ensuring that we continue to be a world-class university are committed to that. And we want to reward them. We want to hire the best. We want to retain the best. And we will use the tools that we have, and I know some people don't like me to use the word tools. We'll use the mechanisms that we have to the fullest extent that we can. But I think we still have a lot to offer here. I think the benefit package, even though we pay more for it, is still pretty good. If you look around the world, and I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago of the HR directors for all the Big Ten schools, we're one of the few Big Ten schools that still gives pensions. Most of the other schools have moved to more of a 401k model. Where pensions are not guaranteed. And that, as you know, in the private sector, pensions are dinosaurs. It's all about 401k and managing your own money. So I think that's a strong benefits program. Even though we're paying more for our health insurance, we're still paying below what most organizations pay. So we try to be competitive with our salary. This living wage thing, it's very sad that we can't do that. That we don't have the compensation flexibility that we hope to have, that we don't have the recruiting and hiring flexibility that we hope to have. But at the end of the day, I think people work here, most people, because they believe in this place and want to make a contribution to it. And I hope that continues to be the case.
Thanks for the question. There was another aspect of the answer that I think you were alluding to earlier, which is that all these things that we're moving forward on, that they reflected all the work team's input and everybody on campus's input about how we try to create opportunities for advancement, how we try to develop better relationships between managers, supervisors, and their staff, how we try to have an engaged, diverse, inclusive workforce. All of those would contribute to our recruiting tools, if I'm using that word, tools.
And retention. I mean, we want to make this a great place to work. Now, we have 30,000 employees, so it's not always easy to make sure that we're meeting the needs of every one of our employees, but we want to do everything we can to do that.
So one of the questions that's been coming up is around employee contributions to health insurance.
Uh-huh.
When are those increases determined, both to health insurance and retirement plans?
The increase on the retirement plan, the employee contribution will increase by around, 0.25%? 0.35%, but that's pre-tax, so it'll actually be reduced a little. So each of us will contribute a little more to the Wisconsin retirement system. I don't believe we know yet on the health insurance. Is that right?
Correct.
And when will...
On
Okay, so we won't know that until August or September. So I don't know that. And that's all determined by employee trust fund for the state as a whole. We don't have any ability to affect that.
So there are a couple more questions here related, and they're related to rumors. And so people want to get people want to get a little
shocked.
Clarity about rumors, misconceptions perhaps. Are there any plans to change or remove comp time?
That's mostly around classified, right?
As far as comp time for non-exempt employees, I'm not aware of any changes to that. I mean, the college, schools, and divisions have the ability to decide whether an employee gets overtime or comp time, but there certainly isn't a campus-considered effort to change that as far as for hourly employees. For exempt employees, salaried employees, certainly have had a lot of discussion about the utilization of overtime over the last number of years. And in the HR design plan, there was discussions about modifying the practices in that area. But for hourly employees, I'm not aware of any concerted effort to make changes in that area.
So there's no campus change that's coming that way. If there are any changes, it has to do with how divisions are thinking about it themselves. And then there's a question related to sick leave. The question is framed this way: why won't we be granted double our sick leave based on the number of years up to a change in the date?
Yeah, we will be. That's the supplemental health insurance conversion credit program. It's still in the comp plan. So whatever it was, it still is.
So, okay. So
no change.
So somebody's saying, so the worry is that it won't be, but
right.
It
and
will be.
That came up with Act 10, that there was a fear that it would be taken away. It's still in the comp plan. So the way it was is the way it still is.
So I think this is the last question that I have here. It comes from an academic staff person who says, currently I'm academic staff. Why wouldn't I convert to classified and use existing pay mechanisms for classified to obtain a higher pay range, since classified is supposedly going away in July 15?
Well, it's not simply a matter of a person can choose to go classified. We have an agreement with OSER, and there is statutory language that covers the difference between classified and unclassified. Basically, the dividing line is, there are two dividing lines. Is it a professional position, and is it primarily associated with higher education? If the answer to those two questions is yes, then it should be academic staff, and a person wouldn't have a choice to go classified, whether they wanted to or not. And in practice, it comes down to, does this job exist in other state agencies? And if the answer is yes, it tends to be classified.
Does that answer the question? It was sort of a multi-question question.
If wants to follow up, that's right.
And again, we'll be hanging around after we're done here, so if anybody wants to follow up that way, or any of you may submit questions through the HR Design website as well. There was one more question that came here. With compensation flexibility, can it be applied to both classified and unclassified above the pay ranges? Above the pay ranges without HR approval? And I think you were talking about how certain things only apply in one or the other.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm not sure that I do.
For above the range for the unclassified, we do have a mechanism called extraordinary salary range, where if there is sufficient market data to say that these types of positions, the range that we have, we cannot recruit and retain people. With the market data, we can make an exception to that. A good example are nurse midwives. They're a subset of our clinical nurse specialists, but they're in demand and they get paid a lot more. So we've created an extraordinary salary range for those folks that's higher than the one normally assigned. Do you have that for anything like that for classified service? The answer to that is no. Not above the pay range max. I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay. And then another part of the question was, do student hourly employees fall under this category? And I think it's no.
No, the answer to student hourly employees, they do not get covered by the compensation plan, and therefore they're not. They don't get the 1%. They don't get the 25 cents. Completely out.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. We hope
Let
you
me just
found
say
this
one more
informative.
thing, Harry. First of all, best questions of all the 4 forums today, so thank you for that. Thank you for being here. But the most important thank you is thank you for the work that you do that enables us, University of Wisconsin-Madison, to be a world-class university. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks.